Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today we're looking at the Necromancer Tank build for the Flames of Ambition DLC. This build is more suited for an off tank, but I'll give you main tank options of course as well when we're getting into the gear later on. And yeah, if you're a Necromancer Tank, chances are you're probably a Necromancer Tank because you want to bring an extra Colossus to the trial, so this build is heavily focused around building ultimate as fast as possible. We'll look into the stats right now. Just quickly buff up. Alright, as you can see, we've got a big Magicka pool of 21k. We've almost got 46k health, and we've almost got 25k stamina. Magicka recovery is super high with 2500. And then our resistances, spell and physical, are at around the 30k mark, just short of it, as long as we're fully buffed. The way we achieve this is 9 points into Magicka, 45 into health, and 10 into stamina. And then we're also using the Atronach Mundus Stone. For our food and potions, we're using the Bewitched Sugar Skulls, which is, in my opinion, still the best tank food out there. It gives you max health, max stamina, and Magicka, and also health recovery for a full 2 hours or 2.5 hours if you've got the champion points selected. For potions, we're just using the normal Essence of Health, the one that gives you all 3 stats, health, Magicka, and stamina, and also increased recovery for all 3 of them. Alright, for the race, I went with a Nord here. Usually the best tanking race, this patch is Imperial, just for the sustain. It makes it, the red diamond passive makes everything a bit easier to sustain. But since this character has always been a Nord and we're heavily focused around ultimate gain, I decided to stick with a Nord for this. It still gives you max health, it still gives you max stamina, and when you take damage you gain 5 ultimate, which is very nice, and it still gives you a bit of increased physical and spell resistances. This used to be more, this used to be almost twice the value. They kept it down to 2600, but it's still a nice race to tank on. So if you are a Nord, especially on a Necro tank with the ultimate gain, you can stick to a Nord easily. There's no reason to race change. Okay, let's look right at the skills here. The first thing we've got on the bar is defensive stance. This comes from the one hand and shield skill line. It starts out as defensive posture. You can morph it to this defensive stance, and what this does is it gives you a 14k damage shield for 6 seconds. It scales off the max health, which is why I wanted to be around the 45k health mark, because a lot of things on the Necromancer setup do scale off of your max health, so this helps us out here a little bit as well. It reflects the next harmful direct damage projectile cast at you, but most importantly, while you have a shield equipped, which we do, the amount of damage you can block is increased by 10% and the cost of blocking is reduced by 10%. So 10% is quite a bit, which is why I always like to have this on the front bar, because it just makes sustain a lot easier because of these 10% we get there. The next thing we've got is our heal. This comes from the Bone Tyrant skill line, first thing you unlock. It's called Hungry Scythe, and it's actually a scythe that you slice into the enemy dealing magic damage, but you do deal for almost 7k health for the first enemy hit, and an additional 2k for each additional enemy you hit, up to 5 times. So this can really be a huge heal, especially if you're in an ad group. You stacked everything up nicely, there's 5 people punching at you, and you want to get a heal. This is quite a big heal, the Hungry Scythe. So you need to be obviously close to an enemy to heal, which is how Necromancer tanking works, but this ability also scales off our max health, and it really just looks like this. You slice an enemy and you heal for the 6k-ish about, but if you have a bigger ad group, then the first one will heal you for about 6-7k, and all the others will also heal you for 2k. So if you just do this, this is a huge heal. Okay, next up is the Spirit Guardian. This comes from the Living Death skill line. Starts out as Spirit Mender, and this just conjures a ghostly spirit to your side for 16 seconds, and it heals you or the lowest health ally every 2 seconds, restoring 2600 health. While active, 10% of the damage you take is transferred to the spirit, so it helps with mitigation as well. Plus, it creates a corpse on death. And also, in the passives, as you'll see later, while it's up, your magicka recovery is increased. So it's pretty much just this little fellow here. He'll stick around for 16 seconds, and 10% of the damage you take will be transferred to him instead of you. Plus, he'll heal you or the lowest health ally every 2 seconds. The next two skills come from the one hand and shield skill line. First one is Heroic Slash. This starts out as Low Slash, morph it to Heroic Slash, because it lasts for 12 seconds, deals a bit of physical damage, puts minor maim on the enemy, reducing their damage done by 5%, and you gain minor heroism, granting you 1 ultimate every 1.5 seconds for 12 seconds. So you always want to keep this up. This will also help with your ultimate gain, and it also puts minor maim on the enemy. And then obviously our taunt, Pierce Armor, starts out as Puncture, morph it to Pierce Armor. This has been changed 1 or 2 patches ago. It used to only afflict the enemy with Major Breach, now it does Minor and Major Breach. So apart from being the taunt that will cause the enemy to only attack you and not your teammates, you will also lower their physical and spell resistance by 3k for the minor and almost 6k for the Major Breach for 15 seconds. This looks just like this. You stab the enemy, and then you can see the little red flames above his head. That means he's taunted. And also in the buffs up there, the little shield, the black one with the broken shield, means you have taunt on the enemy and he'll only attack you. So make sure you always have your taunt up, also for the breach, and you always have your low slash up for the heroism and the minor maim. Our ultimate on the front bar comes from the PvP skill line Support. This is a big group damage shield. Starts as Barrier, morph it to Reviving Barrier. And it will conjure a big damage ward, a big shield for everyone that will absorb up to 25k damage for 30 seconds and also heal the group members for 11k health over 15 seconds. So this is pretty much your oh shit button. And also while you have this slotted, your magicka recovery is increased as well. We'll get into the passives later. So yeah, whenever you know there's huge amount of damage incoming and some of your DPS in the group might die to it, you can pop the barrier. They'll have a big damage shield and get heals over time. This is kind of like a lifesaver in situations with huge amounts of damage incoming. Okay, moving on to the back bar. The first thing we've got from the Destruction Staff skill line is the Elemental Blockade. This is called Blockade of Frost because we're using a Frost Staff. You want to choose the morph that lasts longer, which is Elemental Blockade, lasts for 14 seconds, and it pretty much just puts a AoE on the ground that will shield your allies and immobilize chilled enemies, and everybody inside of it will take damage. The reason we're also using this is to keep up the glyph on our back bar. It just looks like this. You get the shield, and the blockade is down, and everybody inside of it takes damage. Plus your glyph that we have on the staff will keep proccing every time because it ticks every 1 second. So you can have a really good uptime on the glyph on your back bar, which is also very important for reducing the resistances. The next thing we've got here is a bit of a flex slot, but for the just random setup, I chose to go with Necrotic Potency. This is pretty much just a skill which allows you to sort of siphon corpses on the ground and gain ultimate from them. So it says sap lingering life from fresh corpses, granting you 6 ultimate and healing you for almost 2k every 1 second for 2 seconds per additional corpse. This also scales off of your max health, and while slotted, your damage taken is reduced by 3%, which is also very nice because we have the stuff on the back bar, so we're losing out on the one hand and shield passives, but this will cause us to take 3% reduced damage. So as long as there's corpses on the ground, you can just kind of spam this if you don't have anything else to do, because you will gain a lot of ultimate from this as well. And as I said before, the point of the build is to build ultimate as quick as possible to deliver as many Colossus as possible. Next up, also from the Bone Tyrant skill line, is Beckoning Armor. This is the morph of Bone Armor, and it lasts for 20 seconds. Wrap yourself into hardened bone, granting you major resolve, increasing your physical resistance and spell resistance for almost 6k for 20 seconds. Plus, while active, enemies that strike you with ranged attacks will be pulled towards you. So we're not Dragon Knight, we don't have chains. We could use Silver Leash, but usually the Bone Armor works quite well. It's our source of major resolve, increasing our resistances. And while it's up, you can range taunt an enemy, like an archer, for example, and when he'll shoot at you, he will get pulled in by the bone armor. So this is how you stack things as a Necromancer tank. You want to have the bone armor up, group everything up nicely, fear them in place with the next skill that we're about to look at, and then ranged things, you just range taunt them and let the bone armor do the work. Alright. The next skill is for crowd control. It's called Agony Totem. You summon a totem of bone that gives minor protection to you and your allies, reducing their damage taken. After 2 seconds, the totem begins fearing nearby enemies every 2 seconds, causing them to cower in place for 4 seconds. So you can pretty much just stack things up, put the totem up. It will fear the enemies in place. They won't be able to attack. They'll just stand there, do nothing for 4 seconds, which makes it really easy for your DPS to focus them down. And also, all of your teammates that are standing within the totem will get the minor protection. So it's a very nice skill as well for crowd control, also for protecting your team. Plus, your allies can activate the Pure Agony synergy, causing the enemies to take magic damage and applying minor vulnerability to them, increasing their damage taken by 5%. Now, there's many means of getting minor vulnerability. Most teams have a Warden healer or a Warden DPS with the Fetcher Flies that can put it on the boss. But if you're in a dungeon team, for example, and there's no Warden, there's no one with any minor vulnerability, you can just keep the Agony Totem up on the boss as well, and he will always take increased damage by 5%. Just looks like this. Put the totem up. Everybody inside the circle will get minor protection. Every enemy inside the circle will have the minor vulnerability on them. Plus, after 2 seconds, it will cause the enemies to just stand still because they're feared. Very nice skill as well. Next up is our range taunt. That's Inner Rage from the Undaunted skill line. Third thing you unlock here starts as Inner Fire, morph it to Inner Rage, and it pretty much just is a taunt that deals magic damage, but it's a ranged one. Has a range of 28 meters, so it's quite long, and any ranged ally targeting the taunted enemy can activate the Radiate synergy to deal more magic damage. So synergies are always nice. It just works like this. You just taunt the guy from range, and as you can see, there's the little symbol with the black and the broken shield, and he's got the flames over the head, so it just works like the other taunt. However, remember that the other taunt, the close one, will put minor and major breach on the enemy, reducing their resistances. So as soon as you've range taunted things to make sure that they don't attack your teammates, once they come towards you, make sure to stab them again anyway, just for the resistance debuff. And then we've got obviously the Colossus. The Glacial Colossus starts out as Frozen Colossus on our back bar. The reason we're using this ultimate is because dealing damage with it applies major vulnerability to any enemy hit for 12 seconds, increasing their damage taken by 10%. So you've got minor vulnerability from your Agony Totem and major vulnerability from your Colossus, which is the reason why Necromancers are so favorable in trials, because they are the only class that can bring major vulnerability, and it really helps with killing bosses faster. It's pretty much just a big Colossus that comes out of the ground and smashes 3 times, deals frost damage with every time, and the final smash will stun enemies for 4 seconds. But yeah, the major vulnerability is where it's at. That's why we're using this ultimate. That's why we want to build ultimate really fast, so we can use this as much as possible. Okay, we'll quickly look at some additional skills that might be nice to have. There's Avid Boneyard, which will give yourself a synergy. So if you had to wear a set like Alkosh, this can help out with that quite a bit. It's pretty much just a AoE that deals frost damage, and yeah, it makes a synergy. It's the only skill that you can synergize yourself. Usually synergies have to come from other players, but this one gives you one that you can take for yourself. So this helps with Alkosh, for example, if you had to wear that. Then we've got the Empowering Grasp. This is also a nice skill if you wanted to give your enemies Empower and you don't want to wear a set like Galenways, which does that anyway. This is pretty much an area of effect thing. It summons 3 patches of Skeletal Claws, and each area applies minor maim to the enemies, Empower to your allies, which means that their light and heavy attacks will do more damage for about 5 seconds. Another nice skill obviously is the Resurrection ultimate. You should definitely level that up if you're a Necromancer tank. This will just, it's an AoE on the ground with a range of 28 meters, radius of 12 meters, and you can resurrect dead allies, up to 3 dead allies, just by putting that on them. So if you're trying dungeon hard modes and you're having a hard time and struggling and you're the only one left alive, this is a great thing to have on in case everyone else is dead. If they're somewhat close together, you can just put that AoE down and resurrect all of them just with that one skill. Expungent Modify is also a nice skill to have if you weren't running Necrotic Potency, for example, on the back bar, because while slotted, the cost of all your abilities are reduced by 3%, so this helps a lot with sustain as well, especially since we do have some more expensive skills like the Blockade or the Totem on the back bar. Yeah, this is also very nice to have. Plus, it will remove negative effects from yourself and restore magicka and stamina for each effect removed. So it's also a nice thing to have. Mortal Coil is also pretty nice. This will cause you to siphon a corpse and you'll create a beam between you and the corpse. And it will heal yourself and allies in between you that are standing sort of in the beam. And you also restore 1200 stamina about over 12 seconds while siphoning the corpse. Plus while slotted, healing done is increased by 3%. So this is also a skill that can be very nice. Over here we've got the Ultimate Shield Discipline, which is very nice too, because for 8 seconds you will just automatically block all attacks. So you've got 8 seconds time to just do heavy attacks, get some resources back, or recast some skills, or do whatever you feel like, or even resurrect an ally. This is a nice ultimate to have as well. Over here, since we're using a Frost Staff, you could use Destructive Clench, the Frost Clench, as a taunt. Frost Clench also immobilizes and taunts the enemy. However, the range is only 15 meters, whereas the one from Inner Rage is 28 meters, so I usually just stick to Inner Rage. But it is a nice skill to have if you want to try it. And then Crushing Shock, which is a range interrupt, so if you see an enemy casting an ability, you can just use Crushing Shock from range to interrupt them. It's also a pretty good thing to have if you are a tank. Over here in the Fighters Guild, we've got Silver Leash, which is sort of like the Dragon Knight's chains. You can just pull things in. I definitely advise you to get that skill as well, because sometimes you have to be quick with pulling things in and the bone armor might take a while, so it's good to have this in case it was needed. And then in the Undaunted one, obviously Overflowing Altar is a really good skill for a tank as well, especially if you're pairing it with a set like Lady Thorns and the Abbot Boneyard, so you just give yourself 2 synergies to take. Makes it really nice to sustain with Alkosh and always have that active. This is pretty much just a fountain of blood you put on the ground. People can take the Blood Feast synergy, which will heal them for 65% of their health, plus it also applies minor lifesteal to enemies in the area, healing you and your allies for 600 health every 1 second, as long as people are damaging the enemies. So as long as they are hurting something, they will get heals. Then we've got the Mystic Orb, which is nice if you want to give people an extra synergy. It's just a floating orb that deals magic damage, but people that take the synergy will deal more magic damage to them, so because it scales off of the DPS's max values, not of yours. Yes, just really nice for another synergy. Obviously the Warhorn needs to be leveled if you are a tank, because if you've got enough Necromancer DPS's already that can cover the Colossus uptimes, you can use the Warhorn just to increase everybody's max magicka and stamina by 10% for 30 seconds and give them major force, increasing their critical damage done by 20% for 10 seconds. Resolving Vigor is also very nice if you want a stamina based heal, and if you're running a set like Powerful Assault, which is also why I've got proximity detonation leveled, because Powerful Assault will buff everybody's spell damage and weapon damage if you are using a assault ability. And the only assault abilities you really want to use as a tank are the Warhorn, maybe Vigor, and proximity detonation. You could use Caltrops as well, but it's quite expensive, so I usually just stick to those 2. In support, you want to get Purge leveled, which will cleanse yourself and your group, removing up to 3 negative effects. This is very nice for trials like Halls of Fabrication, just to cleanse the enemies, the allies in your team. unless the healers obviously are running this, then you don't need to. Okay, now we'll take a look at the passives to understand what's going on here and why the setup works so well. When your Blast Bones, Skeletal Mage or Spirit Mender dies, the cost of your next one is reduced by 50%. So this comes in very handy for us because we are using the Spirit Guardian, and whenever it dies, we'll recast it for 50% less. This is more of a DPS thing. It increases your critical strike chance in Execute, but we don't do that much. When a Gravelord ability is active, your spell and physical penetration are increased by 1500. It's also more of a DPS thing. You don't necessarily need this, but it's nice to have. And increases your damage done with damage over time effects by 15%. This is a nice one to have as well, but it's also more for DPS. Now, Bone Tyrant is more of the tanking skill line, with a Bone Tyrant ability slotted. Whenever you are in combat and an enemy dies within 28 meters of you, you restore 200 magic or stamina. So this is very nice for our sustain, especially in trials with a lot of ads, like the beginning of Hell Ra. It makes it really nice, really easy to sustain, because every time something dies close to us, we restore magicka and stamina. Reduce the damage you take from damage over time abilities. It's obviously also very nice as a tank. All kinds of damage reduction is nice as a tank. Increases your healing received for each one slotted, each Bone Tyrant ability. This is also very good for us. And then Last Grasp, which just gives us an extra 1250 health, so definitely want that as well. You want to have all of these. And then in the healing one, while you have a negative effect on you, your healing done is increased by 8%, which is very nice, because as a tank you do get a lot of negative effects on you. And it just increases your healing done even to yourself. While you have a Living Death ability slotted, your crit chance for healing abilities is improved, so by 20%. It's also very nice as well, because we do have some skills from that skill line slotted. Corpse Consumption. When you use an ability on a corpse, you generate 10 ultimate. This effect can occur every 16 seconds. So we are using Necrotic Potency, which is an ability we use as a corpse. And yeah, you definitely want to get that for more ultimate every time you use it, or like every 16 seconds. And then here we go with the last one. While the Spirit Mender is up, your magicka recovery and stamina recovery is increased by 200. So this is really good, because you always want to keep your Spirit Mender up, and that will just give you increased magicka and stamina recovery. One Hand and Shield, obviously you want all of these passives because it's our main front bar weapon. Destruction Stuff, obviously you want all of these passives because it's our main back bar weapon. The armor passives, you definitely want all of them from the heavy armor skill line, because we are using at least 5 pieces of heavy armor. If you want to be a bit more mobile and take care of, for example, the Windwalker and Athletics passive, which will give you a bonus to sprint speed and a reduced cost for roll dodging, can be very nice. Really, the armor setup this patch for tanks really comes down to personal preference. You could go with 7 heavy, which will give you the most out of all these passives, so the most resistances, recovery, max health and stuff. You could also use 5 heavy and 2 medium just to get a good bonus on athletics with the movement speed and roll dodge cost and stamina recovery. Or you could do it like most tanks have done it for the past couple patches and go with 5 heavy, 1 medium and 1 light armor, even though I don't really... Well, it gives you... If you had like 1 piece of light armor on, you get 4% magicka recovery and 726 spell resistance, so this is really up to you. Whether you want to take full advantage of the 7 heavy bonus, or go with 2 medium for being a bit quicker and having roll dodge cost less, or go with the old 5-1-1 setup. It's all possible. It's really just up to your personal preference. I would just try it out if I were you. Maybe just try 5-1-1 or 5 heavy and 2 medium, and then see where it takes you. And if you feel you're not bulky enough, maybe just go with 6 heavy or 7 heavy then. It's all up to you anyway. Fighter's Guild, the only thing you want here is this one, because it will make your Silver Leash cost 15% less to cast. Undaunted, you want all of these, because this will give you more health, stamina, and magicka back if you take a synergy, and generally increase your max health, stamina, and magicka. for every type of armor worn. So if you're going with 5.2, it'll be 4%. If you're going with 7 heavy, it'll still be 2%, so it's definitely worth getting these as well. The Magicka 8 passive from support is very nice, because as long as we have barrier slotted on our front bar, we will have 10% increased Magicka recovery. Obviously you want all of your racial skills, and in alchemy the medicine use one, to make your potions last 30% longer, so they can have 100% uptime. Okay, we will now take a look at the gear. So, as I said before, this is more meant to be an off-tank setup, generating ultimate as quick as possible and being able to throw out as many colossuses as possible, but I'll give you options later on. We are running the new set Drake's Rush on the front bar, back bar, and jewelry. So I've got an axe of Drake's Rush here. You can use a dagger or a sword as well, it doesn't really matter. You might want it in decisive though. Defending would be another nice trait for a bit more resistances, but decisive is very nice because the point of the build again is to generate ultimate. So when you gain ultimate, you have a 25% chance to gain one additional ultimate. I've got a hardening enchantment on this one here. You could also go with any other enchantment you enjoy, but this is just giving me a little bit of an extra damage shield for 5 seconds, and I always felt like this is a nice thing for a tank to have. Especially since we're running a decisive axe anyway because of the ultimate gain. So if we had a charged one, we could maybe go with another glyph. But yeah, this is what I choose to run for this build. The Drake's Rush set is new. It comes from the Black Drake Villa dungeon, and it gives you an health bonus, 2 stamina bonuses, plus when you bash an enemy, you and up to 3 group members within 15 meters gain major heroism for 12 seconds, granting you 3 ultimate every 1.5 seconds. This can occur every 18 seconds. So just make sure that every 18 seconds you're bashing an enemy like this, and you will always have a really good uptime on the major heroism to give you even more ultimate. So this really helps with pumping out a lot of colossuses. The shield is in sturdy with a tri-stat enchant. Usually I always had the big pieces of the body armor and infused, but I even went for a sturdy head this time and a sturdy shield, because the block cost is a thing, and also the resource management, so sturdy really helps. Just try to get your shield in sturdy, put a tri-stack glyph on it, and you'll be fine. The ice stuff on the back bar will be an infused with a crusher enchantment. This is just how tanks have been running it for a long time. It reduces the target's physical and spell resistance. So yeah, you're definitely helping out with reducing resistances, making it easier for your damage dealers to just burn everything down. So you got axe, shield, and ice stuff of Drake's Rush, and then you've got the jewelry of Drake's Rush in healthy with Magicka recovery enchantments. I gotta say though that the trait of the jewelry is really up to you. I'm just going with healthy here. I didn't feel like transmuting it, but since we already got 45k health, each piece of healthy gives us 900. So if you can handle 42k health, if that's enough for you, you might as well just go with maybe 1 piece Swift and 2 pieces Harmony to get increased resources back when you take synergies, or just go with Infused for even more Magicka recovery, even though we've already got 2500 Magicka recovery with this build, so I probably wouldn't even advise that. If I would retrade it, transmute it, it'd probably end up being 1 or 2 pieces Swift and 1 or 2 pieces Harmony for yeah, for the extra resource gains, because our pools are so high. We're almost 25k stamina, 21k Magicka, and 45k health. But yeah, you can just leave this in healthy as well. It works very well. I've tried it out. It's a nice thing to use. Okay, so for the monster set, we're going with blood spawns. The head is also in sturdy. The only 2 pieces in infused are the chest and legs, also in sturdy with a tri-stat enchant, just like the shield. Bloodspawn grants you 124 stamina recovery, plus while you take damage you have a 6% chance to generate 13 ultimate and increase your physical and spell resistance by 3600 for 5 seconds. This plays very well with our general build, because as you've seen before in the stats, our resistances are at about 29k. The cap is about 33k, so whenever Bloodspawn procs will be right at resistance cap. Plus, we have a 6% chance to generate ultimate. 6% sounds pretty low, but you are taking damage as a tank constantly, so pretty much every second. So if every second you have a 6% chance to generate 13 ultimate, that really amounts to something in the end. Well, every 5 seconds it can occur, but still. This is just the nicest set I've found to go with, especially for this build with the ultimate gain. A bit more off-tankish. So yeah, as I said before, it doesn't matter if this is in light, medium, or heavy. That's really just personal preference. I still have light shoulders on here because I already transmuted them to sturdy, and I didn't really give a shit, to be honest. But yeah, this works very well. I would probably just go with 7 heavy or 2 medium on the monster set, but that's personal preference. The last set we're running on the buddy is the Akaviri Dragon Guard set. This adds 124 Magicka recovery, 4% healing taken, 1k health, and 152 health recovery. And the nice thing about it is it reduces the cost of our ultimate abilities, so our barrier and our Colossus, by 15%. So we can cast them a lot more often than we already would. And we've got so much ultimate gain in this build with the skills, with the setups, with being a Nord, that we can really have great uptime on the Colossus. This set comes overland. I'd have to lie now. I think it is in Eastmarch, but I'm not sure. Yeah. This comes from Eastmarch. You can just find the set overland, or just buy it at Guild Traders, which is also the very nice thing about this build, because it's very beginner friendly. You can just farm the Akaviri Dragon Guard set from Eastmarch. You can just farm the Drake's Rush set from the Black Drake Villa Dungeon on normal. And then Bloodspawn isn't too hard to get. It's in Spindle Clutch 2, I think, and on Veteran, it's not the hardest Veteran dungeon ever. So it should be fairly easy if you find a nice group to help you to acquire that set as well. So this is really easy to get everything. Alright, for the buddy pieces, as I said, the big piece is in infused, the chest and the legs with tri-stack glyphs on them. Everything else in sturdy with health glyphs on them. So all the small pieces, and the head in sturdy. Alright, so much for the gear. This is my Necromancer Tank setup for Flames of Ambition. Shitloads of ultimate gain, really fun to play, cool playstyle. Now, if you were main tanking, obviously you would want to bring Yolnahkrin from Sunspire, just for the minor Aegis, reducing your damage taken from Dungeon Trial and Arena monsters by 5%. And when you taunt an enemy, you give yourself and 11 group members minor courage for 15 seconds, increasing their weapon and spell damage by 215. So since you're taunting constantly as a main tank, especially when you're fighting the boss, Yolnahkrin's is pretty much a must-have for main tanks, and you would just replace the Akaviri Dragon Guard set with this if you were the main tank. Everything else could basically stay the same, but people will probably want you to wear Yolnahkrins in more serious trials if you are main tanking. So that's another set you should definitely get. Okay, we'll quickly go into the champion points. The green tree is just quality of life stuff. You'll start out down here with Gilded Fingers, increasing your gold gain. Just put the minimum amount of points in here to unlock the next node, which I think is 10, and then put 10 in Fortune's Favor, and then put 10 in Wanderer, and then put 10 in Steadfast Enchantment, and then you can reach Treasure Hunter, which will increase the quality items that you get from treasure chests. Then go down here for Rationer, which is very nice, increasing the duration of the food and drinks that you take. Then go over here, grab Liquid Efficiency, which is very nice because it has a chance to not even consume your potions. And then Steed's Blessing, which will just increase your out of combat movement speed by 20%. For the blue tree, we want to get Eldritch Insight to get more max Magicka, and Tireless Discipline to get more max stamina. Then we want to get Staving Death, which will increase our healing taken, our damage reduction from magical attacks, damage reduction from martial attacks, and damage reduction from general non-player attacks, so all the monsters in the game. This is where all the mitigation is in. And then for the slottables, I've chosen to go with Duelist's Rebuff to reduce damage taken from single target attacks, Enduring Resolve to reduce damage taken from damage over time attacks, Unassailable to reduce damage taken from area of effect attacks, and then Bulwark. While we have a Shield of Frost Staff equipped, our physical and spell resistances are increased by 1900, so with Bloodspawn we can easily reach the cap of 33k. Over here, you definitely want Rejuvenation as a slottable, increasing your health, magic, and stamina recovery, Ironclad, increasing your armor, and Boundless Vitality, increasing your max health. Then we'll go on with Hero's Vigor, which will give you even more max health. And then you definitely want to go over here and get the full block cost reduction cost, and then the increased amount of damage you can block. So these are very important. And then the rest you can just pretty much use wherever you want to. I put a couple into reducing the cost of bash in here, some into reducing the cost of sprint and increasing the sprint speed so I'm faster when I run from boss to boss, some into reducing the cost of roll dodge, and some into reducing the cost of break free. Just fill them up. This is also very nice. Mystic Tenacity reduces the duration of elemental status effects applied by you. And then for your fourth slottable, you can either go with Expert Evasion, which will give you a free roll dodge every 30 seconds if that's your kind of playstyle. But since Necro Tanks are a bit slower, I've chosen not to go with that, but go with Survival Instincts instead. While afflicted with a status effect, all your core combat skills cost 5% less, or 25% less if you got it fully filled up. There's other stuff here too which is nice, like Shield Master, but I don't really shield that much, so I think the most important thing is really to get the Hero's Vigor done with the max health, and then go for the block cost and amount of damage you can block. And then everything else like sprinting, bashing, or breaking free, you should definitely put some points in there, but just fill it up one by one as you go along. Alright, so much for the Necromancer build for the Flames of Ambition DLC. Try it out. You'll be surprised at how fast you build Ultimate and how many Colossuses you can pump out in a very short amount of time. It's a very, very fun playstyle. I hope you enjoy it. Let me know in the comments if you have a Necromancer tank, how you play it, and what you think about the setup. I'll see you next time. Have a good one.